Marquis Nanlong blinked and calmly said, "It's very simple. Fellow Daoist Master Jipero, fellow Daoist Han, and I will act as one and seize the treasure inside Devilfall Valley. Once we find the treasures, our strength will greatly increase, and there will be no need to fear from anyone." Han Li didn't immediately respond. Rather, he narrowed his eyes as he stared at the two. Having heard that the Black Ring were one of the Heaven-Earth rings from legend, he immediately recalled the other ring that he had acquired from Nandong Wang as senior martial sister. If his guess was correct, that should be the young ring of the Heaven-Earth rings. He truly didn't think that the two rings would be related to each other in this way. Han Li felt that the world was truly mysterious for such a coincidence to occur and couldn't help but laugh in his mind. He sighed and wore a hesitant expression. "From what you've said, fellow Daoist Nanlong seems to already have a means to enter Devilfall Valley. With the assistance of the Heaven-Earth ring, what are the chances of living alive and with treasure? Devilfall Valley is known to be the most dangerous place in the Heavenly South. It is no laughing matter, and I have no wish to meeting my death there and becoming feed for any passing animal." When they heard Han Li's words, the two glanced at one another. A short moment later, Marquis Nanlong spoke with a deep voice. "Since fellow Daoist Han asked, I don't conceal this from you. According to what Master Song Kun left behind, Devilfall Valley is still an extremely dangerous place. If one is not careful, they will be absorbed into a shifting spatial tear or find themselves in a remnant of an ancient restriction. To tell the truth, there will be no problem entering. We have an almost certain chance of safely entering, but if it's hard to say when we're searching for treasure, the more dangerous the area, the higher likelihood of getting treasure. Even Master Song Kun is unsure what we will find within these areas." Because Master Song Kun suffered extensive damage to his cultivation at the time, he didn't treat deep into the center of Devilfall Valley. He simply found a few treasures around the outer area. However, this also illustrates there are truly treasures within the valley that had been left behind from times of desolate antiquity. By braving these dangers, we will be certain to return with vast rewards. At the end of his words, his voice seemed to carry a tone of temptation. Master Jipero then said, "Of course, if fellow Daoist is truly unwilling to brave the danger, you can simply give the ring to us. However, we'll only be able to give you a few spirit stones. But I must say that the medicine pills of ancient cultivators are many and their effects are beyond imagination. If you acquire them, it will only be a matter of time before you break through mid and late nascent soul stage. Perhaps you may even be able to find some lost secrets that have to do with deity transformation stage cultivators. After all, we have no idea what truly happens after they enter deity transformation stage as to whether they truly ascend to the spirit realm or whether they undergo some other transformation. Could it be that fellow Daoist doesn't wish to find the truth?" Han Li's eyes glinted and he muttered to himself for a moment before saying, "If I am not mistaken, you two wish for me to enter Devilfall Valley for some reason. After all, you have plenty of nascent soul allies, and have no need for me." Once that was said, their faces immediately froze before revealing a trace of embarrassment. Marquis Nandong pursed his lips in a wry smile and chuckled. With a helpless tone, he said, "To tell the truth, I would have mentioned this even if fellow Daoist Han had raised the point. Not only are there spatial tears and remnant restrictions, there are also a few ancient beasts that had remained since ancient times. Among them is the ancient flame toad that have gone long extinct. Although this flame toad still has become intelligent, it has lived for countless years, and has grown incredibly powerful with skills of otherworldly demon fire. According to what was left behind by Master Song Kun, its demon flames are several times more intense than our own nascent flames. With the blue ice flames that you used to instantly freeze a nascent soul cultivator, you should be able to restrain the flame toad." Han Li blinked with surprise before revealing an odd expression. "Are you saying that the flame toad is blocking your route into the valley?" Master Jipero calmly answered, "Not at all. Rather, the beast has something to do with an ancient cultivator as remain. While there are no restrictions or spatial tears nearby the body, the ancient flame toad happened to place its nest nearby." Master Song Kun planned on acquiring the remains, but he quickly retreated after battling with the flame toad. However, he still suffered from its flame venom afterwards and nearly died as a result. Han Li chuckled and said, "I understand now. You two fellow Daoists wish for me to deal with the ancient flame toad and allow you to seize the treasure." Marquis Nanlong excitedly added, "Dealing with the flame toad will be far more preferable than dealing with the ancient restrictions and the spatial terrace. So long as we use an appropriate strategy, we should have no problems dealing with it given your ice flames. Not to mention that we don't even need fellow Daoists to exterminate the beast, only to capture its attention while we acquire the treasure. Once we have the ancient cultivator as storage pouch, we can simply disengage. After a moment of thought, Han Li indifferently said, according to what you've said, it'll be safer to deal with the ancient flame-toad once we enter rather than risk other areas of Devilfall Valley. Marquis Nanlong nodded his head. If luck would have it, the treasures in the ancient cultivator as storage pouch will be worth the danger. Han Li smirked and formed a mysterious smile. Even if that is the case, you should be able to draw from the power of the Heaven Peak sect and act together. That should be much better than just us three acting alone. I don't believe the Heaven Peak sect can find other cultivators that have ice attribute techniques. Marquis Nanlong sighed and said, it seems fellow Daoist Han still doesn't know the fearsomeness of the Great Earth Essence Light. Even with the Heaven Earth Ring, we'll only be able to use its power to shelter three at most. It doesn't have the strength for a fourth. As for the Heaven Peak sect, I'm sure fellow Daoist should know how difficult it will be for me to trust others after what had happened with the Ghost Spirit sect. At that moment Marquis Nanlong's listless eyes suddenly revealed a cold glint. When Han Li heard this, he simply smiled without revealing the slightest surprise. It seems Brother Nanlong trusts me quite deeply. I am truly honored. Master Jiporo took a quick breath and stared at Han Li, asking, fellow Daoist Han, we've already handled our other affairs. Will you tell us your answer? Han Li skirted the question and asked, could it be that you plan on going to Devilfall Valley soon? Marquis Nanlong quickly answered, no. Although the majority of spatial terraces constantly change, every 50 years there comes a year where the spatial terraces are comparatively calm. I particularly looked into it before we entered the Mulan plains. This calm period will become in about 4 years. During this time, we will have to make a few preparations. Han Li stroked his chin before eventually coming to a decision. Since it is still a while away, I will have to deliberate carefully. How about I give you a reply a year before the period of calm for Devilfall Valley? Even if I can't enter Devilfall Valley, I'll still be able to give you the Heaven Earth Ring to you. The two weren't very satisfied with his answer, but Han Li was about to rashly agree to head into such a dangerous area. After all, he was different from the two. He could tell from a glance that Marquis Nanlong and Master Jiporo were far older than he was and were even nearing the end of their lifespans. They were willing to brave the danger as this was likely their last opportunity. On the other hand, Han Li was still young and was hesitant to face such dangers. After all, changes occur quickly in the world. He would still be able to come to a decision after seeing how things have changed. Fortunately, Han Li had already agreed that he would give the Heaven Earth Ring to them and the two had further pressed the issue. After chatting a bit more on matters related to Devilfall Valley, Han Li tactfully took his leave. Before he left, Master Jiporo gave Han Li a medallion. He said that so long as Han Li showed the medallion to any Heaven Peak disciple, he would be able to contact Master Jiporo through his disciple. Han Li took the item without any reservations and left the stone room. Once he reached back to the store on the ground level, he made way to the street under the shopkeeper's respectful farewell. Han Li was certain that not long after he left, the two would change locations, particularly due to Marquis Nanlong's heavy wounds. He would surely be anxious to find a safe area to recover. However, it would be incredibly difficult for Marquis Nanlong to completely recover after a sparse few years. It was quite possible that his injuries could cause his cultivation to fall an entire level. Han Li inwardly shook his head and tossed the matter to the back of his mind before calmly heading back to his residence. The matter of Devilfall Valley was still quite a distance away, but the invasion of the Mulan spell warriors was happening now. It was something that he'd be able to avoid. Han Li began to consider this matter as he slowly disappeared from view. Once Han Li returned to his residence, he found Senior Marshal Brother Lu and the child fire dragon waiting for him in the hall of the first floor. Mu Piling was currently sitting to the side just like one would expect of a hostess. When she saw Han Li enter, she immediately stood up and said, "My lord, Senior Lu and Senior Long have been waiting for you for quite some time. Did something happen?" Han Li gave Mu Piling a rare smile and gently said, "It's nothing. You can go up first and rest. I'll be having a proper chat with my two senior martial brothers." "Yes, my lord." Mu Piling gave a charming courtesy and climbed up the stairs without another word. When Han Li glanced at her from behind, he felt satisfied at the woman's intelligent response. But when he recalled the matter with Nandong Wang, he couldn't help but sigh. When Lu Luo saw that Han Li had returned in such an excited mood, he teased, "What? Does junior martial brother Han finally have desire for children?" Han Li smiled and sat down beside the two. He calmly said, "Hee, Senior Marshal Brother Jets. Since you two are here, it must be about the treaties meeting earlier today." Lu Luo slowly said, "Junior Marshal Brother guessed correctly. It is about the Mulan invasion. We've already delivered the news to the other sects in the Alliance and the matter has spread to our fellow Alliance members in the city. A majority of these fellow Daoists are willing to send reinforcements in acknowledgement that the matter will not be solved by hiding. They are willing to assist the Nine Nations Union in resisting the Mulan vanguard. Of course, these nascent soul cultivators will require a sizable amount of spirit stones as compensation. I'm sure the Nine Nations Alliance will be more than willing to pay. After all, the Mulan are a fearsome opponent, but it is true that the Nine Nations Union does bear the brunt of the invasion." Han Li nodded his head and spoke with slight puzzlement. "Since that is the case, what is there to discuss? Although I've reached nascent soul stage for only a few years, I am still capable of fighting enemies." The child fire dragon then spoke with a solemn expression. "Fellow Daoists might not know that a group of righteous and devil dao cultivators paid us a visit and spoke of a few matters. I feel that it is reasonable to tell you what they said." Han Li blinked several times before wearing a mysterious smile. "What did they say?" "Don't he tell me that they said the Nine Nations Union was using this as an opportunity to weaken the other three powers?" Lu Luo replied with a wry smile. "Junior Marshal Brother Han is truly intelligent indeed to have guessed correctly after only a moment. However, the Nine Nations Union would find it difficult to deal with all three superpowers at once. It is quite possible that they will ally with one or two parties and take down another. This isn't something that our Heavenly Dao Alliance is willing to see happen. The cultivation world will become unstable when the Mulan spell warriors retreat. Our alliance cannot allow this to happen and upset the balance of power." Han Li smirked and calmly asked, "Oh, you mean?" The child fire dragon said, "It's quite simple. Although the three superpowers will listen to the Nine Nations Union for the time being, we will not allow them to weaken any of us. We had discussed this together with the devilish and righteous Dao, and we came to a conclusion to have further discussions on some rules tomorrow in the official hall. At the very least, the Nine Nations Union will be forced to send their own elders into battle alongside ours, instead of covertly weakening our nascent soul cultivators. We will require Junior Marshal Brother Han along with the other cultivators to back this proposal." Han Li replied without further thought, "It is no problem. I also have no wish for cultivators to secretly plan behind my back while I fight spell warriors." Lu Luo sighed and said, "That is good. In addition to Junior Marshal Brother Han, we will contact other fellow Daoists and ensure that the Enlightened Leaf sect and the Flowing Mind sect will not be able to do this. I hope this war will end as soon as possible, else the losses in the Heavenly South will be untold." The child fire dragon wore a cold smile and ominously said, "Hee. With our cultivation, so long as we are careful, we will be able to preserve our lives in the war. In the last Mulan invasion, I managed to slaughter a good number of spell warriors. This time, I will want to also slay a good number." Han Li glanced at the child fire dragon with astonishment. This cultivator had the appearance of a boy, but his cultivation was at early nascent soul stage. The baleful chi his body emitted was also far more heavy than his peers. It appeared many lives had been slayed by his hand. The three chatted a bit more about the concrete details for tomorrow's discussion and had a few brief words on the sudden appearance of the huge beasts and the strange spell warriors before they departed. When Han Li saw the two to the residence's entrance, Lu Luo hesitated for a moment before asking Han Li, "Junior Marshal Brother, did anything happen from your meeting today with your old acquaintance?" At that moment, Lu Luo was staring at Han Li's face as if wishing to see if he would betray anything from his expression. Han Li blinked and calmly answered, "Nothing happened. We merely discussed about the past." "That is good. I am relieved." Lu Luo felt most of his worries disappear with his response and happily said a few more words with Han Li before leaving with the child fire dragon. Han Li stood in front of his residence and watched the two enter another building nearby, presumably to meet with another cultivator. It appeared that the two had been assigned a duty within the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Otherwise, the devilish and righteous Dao representatives would have sought them out. Han Li stroked his chin and pondered for a moment before going back inside. The second day of discussions had nearly doubled the number of nascent soul cultivators. In addition to the elders of the three superpowers, there were also a few vagrant cultivators. This sudden change had caught the hosts of the conference, the Flowing Mind sect as Lady Qi and the Enlightened Leaf sect as Kunpeng, off guard. They had been forced to agree to the many cultivator-esque conditions regardless of what they had in mind previously. The most important of these conditions being that high-grade assignments must be participated by an equal share of cultivators among the 4 powers, avoiding any machinations the other powers may have in store for another. Hong Li had been particularly surprised to see that the coalition of nascent soul cultivators from the Heavenly Dawn Union, after being informed by Lulu and the Child Fire Dragon, had already came to decision to ascend nascent soul elders and core formation cultivators to support Soaring Heaven City. Of course, since they were still quite a distance away, Lulu and the other cultivators already present would have to delay the Mulan invasion in the meantime. And for the purposes of being fair, those that acquired vast merits in battle would be allowed to return to their sex once reinforcements arrived, and will not be required to participate in any later battles as the incoming cultivators would take their place. Additionally, whether it be the Child Fire Dragon, Lulu, or any others, all the cultivators in the whole have each been assigned various duties to support the front line. Hong Li and the other 2 nascent soul cultivators were leading a party of 8 core formation cultivators to provide support to a strategic location on the border of the state of Yu. It was one of the 10 some vital points along the border that would be a target of the Mulan invasion. If these points remained uncaptured, the Mulan would be able to truly hold any land going forward for fear of attack. As for the 9 Nations Union, their current strength was enough to launch a decisive battle against the Mulan. They could only rely on favorable conditions and meticulously placed grand formations to gradually delay the Spell Warriors' main army. Else, given the speed of the high-grade Spell Warriors, they would have been able to reach Soaring Heaven City in only a month. The main army of the Spell Warriors had yet to reach the strategic location that Hong Li was protecting. However, there was only 1 9 Nations Union Nascent Soul cultivator amongst the high-grade cultivators that were guarding it. It appeared that in the past invasions, a single nascent soul cultivator was enough to contend against a number of spell warriors with the support of the restrictions and spell formations. However, this was nowhere near enough to top spell warrior's current attacks. As for the other nascent soul cultivators, there was Old Man Mo from the Righteous Dao's Grand Pavilion, a lean old man with a healthy appearance, and there was also the green-robed old man that he saw the other day in the discussion hall named Gu Shuangpu. Although he only had a single spirit beast pouch at its waist, Hong Li felt uncomfortable from the chi that it faintly emitted. It appeared that it was quite unordinary. The 2 of them possessed similar cultivation to Hong Li at early nascent soul stage. Because it was likely that the main army of the spell warriors would soon attack this location, the 3 nascent soul cultivators quickly decided to leave behind their core formation cultivators and hurried to reach the spell formation first, and have their core formation juniors lag behind. On the way, Old Man Ma had proven quite entertaining and spoke of humorous matters as if they were on a scenic journey rather than on their way to fight spell warriors. As for the controlling spirit sect's Gu Shuangpu, he kept silent for most of the journey and wore a solemn expression. It was unknown what he was thinking. As for Hong Li, he wore a smile on his face and spoke with Old Man Ma, giving the 2 a refined impression. The 2 both knew that Hong Li was a newly ascended nascent soul cultivator, and they didn't hold Hong Li's strength in much esteem. Nearly half a month later, in the Yellow Dragon Mountains of the state of Yusli Prefecture, there was a large bald middle-aged man that stood inside a jade hole on top of the Yellow Dragon Mountains. He continuously walked in a circle with an apprehensive expression. A short moment later, the large man sat down on a straw chair and took a sip of tea from the cup on the table, calming his roiling heart for a time. But then a red streak of light suddenly flew inside and began to circle around the hole. The large man's expression changed upon seeing this, and he beckoned to the red light, having it fall into his hand. The light burst into raging flames upon touching his hand, and the large man sunk his spiritual sense within them. His expression immediately turned unsightly. Silence filled the hole for a time, and his expression grew ashen. Then, he silently took out a small azure bell from his storage pouch and struck it with his finger. A melodious ring filled the entire hall, with unceasing echoes returning from a distance. Soon, the ring spread to the entirety of the Yellow Dragon Mountains, and the jade buildings on top of the other peaks began to flourish with lights of every color. Then cultivators wearing various clothing hurriedly flew out from these buildings as if practiced. Not long after, a dense green mist began to spread throughout the entire Yellow Dragon Mountain, turning an area of tens of kilometers into a sea of strange dark green mist. Soon after, 4 cultivators appeared before the large bald man from within the hall, 3 men and 1 woman, all possessing core formation cultivation. There were two men that appeared 30 years of age, appearing similar enough to be siblings. The other man was wearing Taoist robes, wielded a horsetail whisk, and despite his gallant appearance, he was middle-aged. As for the sole female cultivator, her figure was dainty and her face was exceptionally beautiful. The four were each standing next to one another in the hall with grave expressions. With an expression of disbelief, the female cultivator hesitantly asked, "Senior Lu, is it true that a spell warrior army has arrived so quickly? From what we heard last time, wasn't it only supposed to be a squadron of spell warriors? And what happened to Senior Bu? Could it be that in a mere week the Heavenwind Storm formation was destroyed even under the guard of Senior Bu? Is this not a misunderstanding?" The bald man coldly smiled and grimly said, "Misunderstanding? I would think that also were it not for the fact that Hunchback Bu had personally sent me the message. He even mentioned that he sustained heavy injuries and was about to soon arrive at our Yellow Dragon Mountains along with a few of his defeated garrison. This is by no means a misunderstanding. We will have to face the enemy alone without any reinforcements." When the four core formation cultivators heard this, they could only glance at one another with a bitter smile and acknowledge him. Following that, the large man gave each of the four their orders in preparation for the oncoming battle, but suddenly yet another streak of red light flew into the building. The cultivators in the room were stunned by the sudden appearance. The large man grew still and reached for the sound transmission talisman without any hesitation. As a result, the talisman bursted into flame and clearly transmitted its message to him, causing him to wear an odd expression. The female cultivator couldn't help but ask, "Senior Lu, what is the matter? Spell warriors have already arrived." When the other three core formation cultivators heard this, their expressions all grew tense. The large man grinned. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, he slowly said, "No, our reinforcements have arrived. 3 nascent soul Feldaoists have arrived outside the Grand Formation. Quickly, head out to welcome them and invite them inside." Immediately, the 4 core formation cultivators revealed delight and promptly accepted the large man's orders with a salute. 3 silhouettes were floating outside above the green mist and were examining the restrictions of the Grand Formation down below. The 3, of course, were Hanli and the other 2 nascent soul cultivator that had hurried on their way. Because the 3 would soon be relying on the Grand Formation to resist a siege from the Mulan armies, they each examined the sea of mist surrounding the mountains as they waited for the cultivators inside to respond, wishing to see the mysteries that it hid. Let alone whatever the true power of the spell formation may be, the green sea it produced seemed nearly limitless at a glance and emitted an unordinary pressure. With his hands behind his back, a blue light suddenly appeared in Hanli's eyes as he glanced at the formation, resulting in a pensive expression on his face. Not long after, a series of white flashes appeared from the green mist, and the mist rolled away to create a passage through. Old Man Ma and Gu Shuangpu seemed to pay this change no notice. One of them was looking at the sky in silence while the other was staring at another portion of the green mist as if he found something odd about it. Hanli was the only one that calmly glanced at the passageway with a faint smile on his face. A short moment later, 4 streaks of light shot out from the passageway, revealing themselves to be the 4 core formation cultivators from before. The gallant middle-aged cultivator in Taoist robes respectfully saluted the 3. Juniors paid their respects to these seniors. "May we know of your venerable names?" When Hanli saw that the 2 had no intention of speaking, Hanli smiled and took the initiative to introduce themselves. "I am the Drifting Cloud sect Elder Hanli. These 2 are Feldaoist Ma of the Grand Pavilion and Feldaoist Gu of the Controlling Spirit sect. There are still another 8 core formation cultivators on their way. Us 3 left them behind in fear that we would be too late. And since the Grand Formation is currently activated, the Moulan must soon be arriving." The gallant middle-aged cultivator then gave an introduction to the 3 cultivators standing behind them, so it turned out to be Senior Han. "I am the Clear Void sect as Chongxius. These 2 are Yellow Maple Valley as Muron brothers, and this is the Saber Transformation Dog as Lady Li." The Muron brothers? Hanli's gaze flickered across the brothers and he wore a mysterious smile on his face. Is fellow Taoist Nia still doing well? The Muron brothers revealed delight upon hearing this. Senior recognizes Senior Martial Sister Nia. We haven't seen her for several years because we've been stationed at this Grand Formation. Hanli glanced at the 2 brothers and pursed his lips into a beaming smile. "Of course I do. I saw your Senior Martial Sister not too long ago. But it seems you 2 don't recognize me. This comes as no surprise as I was but a passing phase to you 2. The two were greatly alarmed upon hearing Hong Li and immediately stiffened. This senior seemed to be an old acquaintance, but why was it they had no impression of him? They took another careful look of Hong Li before eventually finding him to feel somewhat familiar. The two then bewilderedly glanced at each other. He. Since you fellow Taoists don't recognize me, I'll leave the matter for later. Hong Li then glanced at Old Man Ma and Du Shuangpu from aside and indifferently said, Can we now go inside? Chong Shuzi felt somewhat baffled by the previous scene, but he roused upon hearing Hong Li and hastily agreed, Of course. Seniors, please follow me. Senior Liu is eagerly waiting for you in the main hall. Afterwards, the four core formation cultivators led the way as they flew through the green mist. Not long after, the passageway within the roiling green mist quickly closed once more. A short moment later, Hong Li and the others appeared within the hall before the large bald man. When the bald man saw the three, his stern expression was replaced with a smile. I welcome you three for supporting our defenses. Guarantee you brother Ma and fellow Taoist Gu. As for this young fellow Taoist, who might your name be? Upon seeing Hong Li, the large man felt him too unfamiliar and he curiously examined him. Old Man Ma chuckled and said, It is no surprise that brother Liu doesn't recognize him. Fellow Taoist Hong just condensed his nascent soul a few years ago. His future prospects are limitless. A trace of disappointment momentarily appeared on the large man's face when he heard that Hong Li was a newly ascended nascent soul cultivator, but he soon wore a grateful expression. Oh, so it turned out to be a newly ascended fellow Taoist. It is no wonder why I've never seen you before. But regardless of how it is said, I am most grateful for your support. I fear that we would be fallen in mere days had you not arrived. The bald man's momentary lapse had escaped Hong Li's notice. However, he simply smiled in silence and didn't betray the slightest discontent. The bald man then spoke of a few past matters before moving on to the difficult situation that was currently facing them. Skipping further pleasantries, the large bald man bluntly said, You three fellow Taoists arrived just in time. I just received information that an army of spell warriors attacked fellow Taoists to South Sky Terrace Valley and are coming here in passing. In less than half a day, our defeated allies from Sky Terrace Valley will arrive. I hope when the time comes, you three fellow Taoists will be able to rescue them. Showing not the slightest dissatisfaction at the request, Old Man Ma said, This will be handled. It is but a trivial affair. I'll be able to do it myself, so there is no need for fellow Taoist Hong and brother Gu to act. This caused Hong Li and Gu Shuangpu to glance at each other with slight surprise. The old man twirled his beard and wore a mysterious expression. Fellow Taoists, don't be surprised. It isn't that I wish to show off, but there is a recently acquired treasure that I wish to test. Surely you won't fight me on this? Gu Shuangpu chuckled and indifferently said, Hee. Fellow Taoist Ma must feel confident. I'll definitely leave it to you. That's good. Let us have fellow Taoist and brother Gu take a rest first and leave it to fellow Taoist Ma. However, I'll have the Moulan brothers accompany fellow Taoist Ma on the trip. The two have cultivated the lightning bind spell technique. It should prove quite powerful. The old man had no intention of opposing him. After all, having allied accompaniment in an unfamiliar area was proper conduct. Afterwards, Old Man Ma and the Moulan brothers immediately set off to receive the defeated 9 nation cultivators. As for Hong Li and Gu Shuangpu, they were led inside the hall by the remaining 2 core formation cultivators and were given a place to rest for the time being. Along the way, Hong Li and the old man separated, and Hong Li was led to a small serene building by the young woman. The dainty woman pointed to the building and stood to the side as she spoke. Senior Hong, this place is normally strictly prohibited from low-grade disciples. It should be an optimal place to meditate. Senior may rest here. It is quite good. Hong Li nodded with a trace of satisfaction on his face. The woman didn't immediately depart. Instead, she hesitated and asked, Senior, is fellow Taoist Nia doing well? I haven't seen Senior Marshall's sister in a long time. With some surprise, Hong Li shot the young woman an appraising look and calmly asked, What? Are you familiar with young lady Nia? At that moment, Hong Li discovered that although the woman felt somewhat familiar despite being the first time he had ever seen her, he unconsciously developed a good impression of her. As Hong Li gazed at the woman, she began to feel slightly apprehensive and upset, and her complexion turned scarlet. I was able to enter the Saber transformation dock in much thanks to Senior Marshall's sister Nia's recommendation, the dainty woman explained with a lowered her head. How could I not be close with her? Yingming, Li Yingming? When Hong Li heard this, he couldn't help but reveal an astonished expression. Li Yingning unconsciously raised her head and astonishedly asked, "Has Senior heard my name before?" Han Li didn't answer the woman and simply took a deep breath before asking, "What was your mother's name? What country did she come from?" The woman hesitated for a long while, debating inwardly whether or not the information should be hidden. Something then came to her mind and replied, "My mother's name was Moulan. She came from the state of Yu. Why does Senior ask this?" After a moment of silence, he said, "Do you still have the passing spirit jade pendant?" "I do have it. I've kept it close at hand ever since I was small." After she replied, she blushed underneath his stare and turned around. She fumbled within her robes for a moment and turned around with a white jade pendant in her hand. Han Li beckoned to it as soon as he saw it and had the jade pendant fly into his hand. Once he rubbed the smooth surface of the jade pendant, Han Li let out a long sigh and wore a listless expression. "You should realize who I am now," he said after a long while. "What did your mother say of me?" He examined the woman once more and eventually found a trace of Moulan's resemblance after knowing what to search for. Although her beauty was somewhat less than her mother in her prime, he could still find a similar trace of country-shaking beauty. With a wavering expression, Li Yingxiu muttered, "In the past, Mother didn't speak much of you. I only heard that she had a close friend who gave me a congratulations present at the time, a cultivator. After I entered the cultivation world, I attempted to find the gifter of this jade pendant several times, but I found no information. I didn't expect that Senior gave it to her. After all, Senior is a drifting cloud sect cultivator." Han Li stroked his nose and wryly smiled. "I only recently entered the drifting cloud sect several years ago. In the past, I was no longer able to remain in the state of Yu, so it is no surprise that you've heard nothing of me. How was it you were able to enter the saber transformation dot? It is reasonable to say that it would come to no surprise if you joined the controlling spirit sect." Li Yingxiu blinked in astonishment and asked, "Why would that come as no surprise if I were a disciple of the controlling spirit sect?" With a tone of surprise, Han Li asked in turn, "You didn't know about your father's affairs?" The woman's expression grew dim and she forced a smile. "I know little of my father. From my earliest memory, my grandfather and my father died from unknown causes, and I lived alone with my mother. She brought me away from the state of Yu and we wandered for a long time before finally arriving within the territories of the Nine Nations Union." Han Li nodded his head as if he had suddenly realized something. "So it was like that. It seems that your father and mother were caught in the crossfire of the Devilfall's inner struggle. After all, the ghost spirit sect were the ones who had ended up controlling the state of Yu, not the controlling spirit sect. An internal struggle amongst the Devilfall." The woman seemed confused by what Han Li had said. Han Li didn't further elaborate upon seeing this and instead returned the jade pendant to the woman and smiled. "This passing spirit jade has followed you throughout many years, so naturally I won't be taking it from you. Before I entered the world of immortal cultivation, I was your mother's senior martial brother of sorts. You may call me Martial Senior Han in the future." Still puzzled, the woman blinked several times with large eyes, but she still softly shouted, "Martial Senior Han." Although she felt slightly embarrassed, she was more than willing to accept having another Nascent Soul Senior. She was even secretly delighted over it. Han Li wore a friendly smile on his face and he summoned 2 jade bottles with a flip of his hand. "Since you've called me Martial Senior, I can't ignore it. Here are 2 medicine bottles. They are quite useful for breaking through bottlenecks at core formation stage." In his point of view, if he could assist the descendant of an old friend, he was going to be petty about it. "Many thanks, Martial Senior." The woman accepted the medicine pill and revealed an expression of pleasant surprise. Her voice sounded both crisp and sincere. "What sort of magic treasure do you use?" Han Li asked after a moment of thought. "Could it be the flying saber that you were flying on?" Li Yingning paused for a moment and replied with a puzzled tone, "That's right, it's that magic treasure. The flying saber was refined from intense flame iron and profound blossom crystal. Its power is quite good." Han Li shook his head and said, "Were these ordinary times, the flying saber would be sufficient. But now that you must contend against spell warriors, I fear it would be quite dangerous to rely on that magic treasure alone." Li Yingning helplessly said, "However, if Martial Senior were to give me another magic treasure now, I would have the time to refine it." When Han Li heard this, he muttered to himself with a pensive expression. A short moment later, he slapped the spirit beast pouch at his waist and a large swarm of black-tinted gold devouring beetles flocked around him, forming a 3-meter wide insect cloud above him. A bright gleam flickered in Hong Li's eyes and he pointed to the insect swarm. A small portion of the insect swarm separated off and were struck by an azure spell seal. The cloud of gold-devouring beetles then gathered together in a flash of azure light and instantly transformed in a sparkling, fist-sized ball of black, silver, and gold. Once the ball slowly fell into Hong Li's hand, Hong Li tossed the ball to the woman and he solemnly said, "Place this item well. I meticulously transformed these insects. When you encounter an enemy that is difficult to deal with, throw the ball. It will save your life." Li Yishu was stunned by the sight and was awakened by Hong Li's words. She immediately accepted the ball and uttered her thanks. "Many thanks for Marshal Senior Hong's deep kindness." The last doubts regarding Hong Li in this woman's heart had finally disappeared. At this moment, she completely trusted Hong Li. Why else would he give her such valuable gift without having a previous relation? "Alright, you may leave now. I wish to rest." After that was said, Hong Li took back the remaining insect cloud and waved his hand. The hurried rush to this strategic location had drained much of his magic power and he needed to restore it. Using a faintly intimate tone, Li Yingning said, "Marshal Senior Hong, have a proper rest. If the Spell Warrior army arrives, I will come and inform you."